breathing a sigh of relief.
Very reassuring. Most of them have been in public servants before, no? Okay naman ang mga track record nila, and they have done well. And I think having this experience, government officials back would be a benefit, no?
We are very happy with the choices. Yung unang fear namin is magiging mga political appointees. Wala akong alam doon na naghahabol ko sa pwesto. Yung mga yun kinausap at some of them pinag-usapan pa magsilbi.
The business group said the incoming administration should be careful in choosing the next agriculture chief amid the looming food shortage owing to the tension between Ukraine and Russia and the ensuing recession in Europe.
The private sector says it finds comfort in the economic team of the new administration, but government will have a tough job of bringing back the country's economy to pre-pandemic conditions. How will the team strike the balance between growing the economy and paying the country's debts? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. We will be joined by our guest and the other chiefs when we return. Welcome to this weekend edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Also with us, Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5, and Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star. Ladies, happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Yes, happy weekend.
I think our guest also greeted
That's
us.
a voice from nowhere, but I know who he is.
Okay, let's bring in our guest na kung ganun. Okay, and so now joining us is former Socioeconomic Planning Secretary, UP Professor Emeritus Ernesto Pernia. Sir, magandang gabi and welcome back to the Chiefs.
Good evening, Prof.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you back.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me start off with this. I think it was in January when you were quoted as saying na Marcos' victory may not necessarily be good for the country. But let's zoom into something specific. With the choices that he has made for at least for his economic team, what is your view as to the future of the economy?
Well, Ed, my thinking about Bongbong Marcos becoming president was common. I mean, most people, many people, professionals, students, and
Yes, sir.
several others were doubtful or were uncertain about the kind of president
Yes, sir.
Bongbong Marcos would be. So it was not unique to myself. I was in fact how many economists? About 267 economists in the country were for Lenny.
Yes, sir. I remember that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but except Ben Jokno, Philip Medalla, and RC Balisacan, because they were still in government. RC was with PCC. Philip Medalla was monetary board, and
yes, sir.
Ben Jokno was central bank.
Yes,
so
sir.
they were not included in the counting of economists.
Yes, sir. And those three are now joining the cabinet or the BSP after June 30. Sir, so how does the outlook look right now? Most of these people, these guys are actually your former colleagues in government
yes.
and with the School of Economics.
Yes. Well, it's relatively more hopeful now that the economic team is cohesive. It's a cohesive economic team because these are all professors at the UP School of Economics, and they understand each other. They have the similar mindsets about issues and challenges to the economy is going to have to face. Yeah.
So what else are the appointments you are expecting to be announced, the most important to consider for economic recovery?
Well, we are facing a looming fiscal crisis, and so what really needs to be done is to make the economy grow so that it can outgrow the fiscal deficit and the debt to GDP ratio. If the economy grows, say 7% per annum, then the denominator becomes bigger. The numerator, the debt, which is the numerator, becomes more manageable.
Now I'm asking about the appointments that you are awaiting for the economic recovery. I mean, which portfolios do you want filled up as soon as possible? Just to give you an idea of the policy direction of the incoming administration.
Yeah, of course, Department of Finance, NEDA, and then I think Department of Trade and Industry is also important, and then Department of Agriculture. I think these are the key cabinet positions because agriculture and DTI, the trade and industry, they have to do with products, or some manufactured products, and then agriculture is needed for food, food sufficiency or food, for the country. So those are two important cabinet positions also. So I would think that the bigger economic team would include not only Finance, NEDA, BSP, and DBM, but also DTI and Agriculture.
Okay, but what do you think of the new economic team so far? No, are you seeing a continuity in the policy right now? Because businessmen have expressed confidence and support in this so far the appointees that make up the economic team. Do you share that optimism?
Yes, I'm a bit more confident with this economic team, as I have said, because it's an economic team that is cohesive, and they are likely to be working harmoniously rather than disagreements on certain issues and policies.
Yes, sir.
Which
Yes, okay, but what about
which
the
happened
policies?
Which
Yes.
happened during the Duterte administration.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but sir, does this mean that you're in agreement with the fiscal policies precisely that they will probably undertake under the new administration? And the Finance Secretary Dominguez has proposed the tax reform package in order to be able to pay the $249 billion debt that we have to be paying in the next 3 years because of the COVID. Are you in agreement with that policy, which seems to be something that the new economic team will want to pursue?
Yes. Well, we need better tax administration so that leakages will be minimized, and those who are supposed to pay taxes should pay taxes. The problem, though, is that the incoming president has not paid his taxes, so it's not a good example. People can argue, they can be philosophical and say, why should I be paying? The head of the country hasn't paid his taxes due on their properties.
Yeah, but do you think?
Are you seeing a compromise there? Kasi kanina, Ben
Yeah.
Johnson was speaking in an interview, sabi niya, importante nga daw, the perception in tax collection, yung public perception. So meron ng undertone yun na he might seek at least compromise na because the Marcoses are of course disputing the amount dyan sa estate tax na yan. You think that's possible that they might work out a compromise just to improve public perception about the efficiency of tax collection?
That would exert a pressure on them, especially that we need better tax collection, more revenue for projects, as well as for the problem of oil and food inflation. Those are the key things that have to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But sir, they're not just looking at better tax collection. They're also looking at new taxes. For example,
Yes.
taxes on excise taxes on motorcycle purchases, pickup truck purchases, increased
Digital.
road tax, additional 1 peso tax on oil products, single-user plastic tax, as well. Pulling back the provision on the train reductions by 3 years and increasing the coverage of VAT or removing some exemptions.
Retired na ako noon. Hindi ko matitikman ang
I think the better approach is to really tighten tax administration and make sure that tax collection is done correctly, and that there are no tax evaders, and there are no leakages. There are no wasteful spending.
Yes,
And
sir.
then later on, if it's still not enough, then maybe we should start, implementing those tax measures that were mentioned by DOF.
Yes, sir. You're saying plug
Yes,
the
but
leakages
some
first
people
before
are
going
saying
into new
that-
taxes. Yes, sir. You're saying plug the leakages first before you go into new taxes, in other words.
That's right. No, tax administration is very imperfect in our country. So just improving tax administration can already generate a substantial amount of revenue. But I'm not saying that is not enough. That is not enough. I think we still need to implement newer taxes, but some it's better that the taxes that we are going to implement are going to hit the richer classes more than the lower income classes. That's important.
Pero sir, marami nga nagsasabi, people are always saying, let's improve the tax collection, let's have a better tax administration. All these years,
That's
that's always been the goal.
That's true.
But it has hardly been achieved. So the question is, what difference can this new economic team make in order to improve tax administration so that there won't have to be new taxes imposed, so that we can finance the debt that we had, ramped up during the COVID?
Well, growing the economy, as I think already mentioned by Ben Jokno, growing the economy at 6 to 7%, even 7% would be better, would be able to ameliorate or mitigate the burden of, the burden of low taxes. So that's very important that the economy grows, because when the economy is growing, it also generates more revenue. Right.
Mukhang
sectors?
cool si BBM sa new taxes eh. Sabi niya, we're still trying to recover from the pandemic. And you mentioned agriculture. Sinabi rin niya he wants to review our accession to RCEP. What's your position on that? Sabi niya baka daw matalo yung mga farmers. Pag
No. I think he's rather kind of behind in terms of understanding what RCEP is. It's not going to hurt the farmers. The thing is, he's still studying things. I'm talking about the incoming president. He's still learning. Yeah. In fact, there's really no need for him to, there's no need for him to study, take time to study the RCEP. It should just be, should just be approved by the Senate. It's just pending in the Senate. It's already okay at the House of Representatives.
What kind of damage will that RCEP do if we put it on hold? If that's something that the president decides to at least tentatively pull out of?
Well, it will delay our the benefits that we're going to get from the RCEP, because most countries, I think it's only the Philippines in ASEAN that has not yet adopted the RCEP.
We will be eased out now of certain markets, is that correct? Yun ang sabi nila Mon Lopez naman.
Yes.
Unahan tayo.
That's right.
Yes.
So we will be losing, in terms of trade, trading partners. We will be, at the losing end.
So how do you? Yeah. Okay, but going back to the 249 billion that Finance Secretary Dominguez is saying we ought to be able to pay up for, no? It's either we increase taxes or do better tax management, or we borrow again. Surely that's borrowing is surely not an option that we want to avail of when we're already 13 trillion in debt, right? So what to you is a more concrete way to address this deficit?
Well, the borrowings, the bulk of the borrowings are long term. They will take 20 years, 30 years to mature. So that's the thing about the debt. So it's not an immediate thing that needs to be paid for. So what we need is really revenues, tax collection to finance economic growth, like the investment in infrastructure, investment in human capital, improving our health system capacity, improving our digital connectivity. Those are things that need to be addressed so that the economy can grow faster.
Okay.
Well, one thing we're expecting, and many analysts are saying will be inevitable, in the incoming administration is charter change. Kasi the president-elect ran under a party that espouses federalism. What do you think will be the impact of a constitutional change on our post-pandemic economic recovery?
Well, I wouldn't do that in the short run or in the immediate term. That can wait. I think the more urgent matters to attend to is, as I've said, finding ways of growing the economy, because especially we have high inflation, we have rising inflation, and then we have these exogenous factors coming from Ukraine and Russia, the disturbance, and and China. China is not growing as fast as it should. So these are the exogenous factors that are also going to be adverse to our economic growth. That's why there's a lot of effort needed in terms of fueling economic growth.
Sir, when you
From
say yes, sir. Sir, when you
Yes,
say that you wouldn't recommend that he go into it yet, are you referring to charter change itself, or are you referring to federalism? Because of course we do remember from before your concerns about the shift to federalism.
For both, Ed, I would not go into that on the first year of the new administration.
At least on the first
Why
year.
not?
Why not? Well,
Yes, why not?
It's not as urgent as the fiscal crisis that we are facing, and the making sure that the economy grows at least 6% per annum.
And
Do you think we will be able to sustain the 8.6 growth that we experienced for quarter one?
No,
Do you see this? Yeah.
Quite unlikely. That was really just
Real.
that was a base effect.
Yeah.
Base effect. We were coming from a negative growth
I'm negative. Yeah.
in last year's quarter, last year's first quarter. So
Yes,
you
but
have
it was above target, di ba? It was above target. So,
above expectation. Yes, above expectation. Yeah.
so what would be a modest growth target, given that we're just coming from an election, and what do you foresee will be the GDP by year end?
For this year, I would probably in the order of 6 and 6.5%, 6.7, something like that percent. Yeah.
But you think the financial problems, well, we're heavily in debt. You think our financial problems will make it even more difficult to shift to federalism? Because we remember that was your main opposition, no?
Right.
In this administration to the shift.
Yeah.
Hindi natin kaya, it's too expensive. At pag na-implement, hindi natin kaya lalo. You think that makes it even more complicated, our current financial woes?
Oh yes, it's going to be even more difficult to do that now, with the economy not in as good shape as it was when we were talking about that federalism. Yeah.
But when will it ever be a good time? I mean, it's not like this is the first time we're talking about federalism. Is it really something that is worth pursuing? And if so, when within the next 6 years would be the ideal time to pursue it, if it's even part of the policy of the new government?
Frankly, I'm not keen about federalism, because our regions are so unequally, they are very unequal in terms of development, in terms of resilience, in terms of resources. So it's very difficult to have federal states or federal regions that are so unequal in terms of economic growth and resource base and all that. So, and even in terms of education and health system capacity, it's very, very unequal. If you compare the, say, Calabarzon or Central Luzon with Bicol, it's a very unequal comparison. And then Eastern Visayas is another lagging region. So I would not, I'm not, I would not advocate. I'm not an advocate for federalism.
Yes, sir. Sir, let me go back to the economic team that's been formed by the incoming president. It's the same question I've asked a few other economists in the past few days. Of course, several economists and businessmen are in fact comfortable with the new economic team because of continuity, as you have said. But on the other hand, I suppose that Mr. Marcos was brought into power by a wave of disgruntlement by people who see no substantial improvement in their lives in the last 36 years. I think that's what they're looking for, na parang something new, something different. How do we strike that balance po between continuity and yung demand ng mga tao na bigyan niyo kami ng something na bago na mag-iiba ng buhay namin?
Well, that was also the expectation of people for when Duterte was going to run.
Yes, sir.
They thought that they thought that Duterte would be the savior, but I don't think that is well. I don't think people are looking up to BBM as going to be an effective and good president, given his background, and that is why the more thinking and the professionals, they were not really supporting BBM. And if you look at the pattern of voting, the D and E were the biggest biggest chunks of the voting population.
Yes, sir.
I think the D was accounting for about 70% of voting population, and so this is the group that can easily be persuaded to, given the kind of information that is being catered to them, they tend to they tend to be credulous. They tend to believe, and that's why they. I think that is I'm not trying to discredit the voting, but yeah, well, as you know, the BBM started preparing as early as 2014, and he was really able to get into these groups that are easy to convince. Yeah.
Well, he's calling for unity. Are you saying this in his new appointments, at least to the economic team? And today his sister, Amy Marcos, said maybe he should form a team of rivals and recruit even from his staunchest rivals, recruit people into his government. What do you think of that?
Well, that's fine. That's fine. If he can invite the opposition to help the government, and if they see that he's really sincere and it's going to help the country, then I think they will join. In fact, I think these people like Ben Jokno, Philip Medalla, and the others, they are they think that they can help. Yeah.
Sir, if I may, sir, what is it about UP, UP School of Economics?
Loaded
is there
dyan,
any
taga-UP.
particular
Why not?
is there
Why
any
not?
particular philosophy that
Question.
marks UP School of Economics, which is why it's almost always being tapped by presidents?
Nagbubuhat siya ng sariling bangko.
It's
Tapakamot
And,
rin ng ulo.
it's a leading question.
Oo nga, oo nga. Your Honor, you may not answer.
Objection, Your Honor. It's a leading question.
well,
Sustained.
it's the top school of economics in the country, and if you're looking for economists, then you go there, and you try to find people there, and yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm not exactly asking about the quality of the output, more of the philosophy. Is there something with no, with the school of thinking of the School of Economics that marks it from other schools of from other business schools?
No, I think the UP School of Economics has just been ahead in terms of the compared with the other colleges of economics like in Ateneo and LaSalle.
Biased masyado yung sagot, sir.
Kaya galit yung Ateneo at Lasal.
Biased masyado.
Kasi ganito naman talaga mayroong leaders and then mayroong followers.
Oh, di ba?
Oh, ayan,
Ginatungan pa.
Huwag na yan, ha? Objection,
The
Your
leaders
Bago
Honor.
na tayo sa basketball, tama na.
Speculation and hearsay.
The leaders are the older people. The older people and
Age
The older
before
one.
beauty.
Order yan. Bagay talaga si Ami at si M dyan.
Age before beauty. Hinahit, nanalo na tayo sa basketball.
Okay, sige.
Ateneo and LaSalle are fast catching up. Very soon they will
Sir,
be the ones who.
You're talking about
They
basketball,
have
sir,
not
or
caught
economics?
up, ha? Sir, sabi niyo yan, ha? Hindi ko yan. Si Ed kasi.
The people that the School of Economics in the cabinet, they're mostly in their 70s. They're not young. They're not young Turks.
Yeah, but that's expertise, di ba?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well,
Carl Chua. Si Carl Chua man, di ba?
Carl Chua.
Bata pa yun, di ba?
Carl Chua
I
was
mean-
our
President Duterte yun.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, you're talking
our
about
student.
economic
He was our
things.
student. He was our student, so he was.
Yan ah. O, hindi puro matanda ron.
Meron din ang mga young Turk doon, in short. Okay.
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 I suppose we should end it. We're already talking about ages, so saan pa tayo
It's
mapunta?
time to cut this.
Well, sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Secretary Ernesto Pernia, sir, ingat po parati, and we hope to have you
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Our conversation was not well organized. We were just speaking with different tongues, right?
Ingat, sir. Thank you po.
Like the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel, yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Salamat, sir. Ingat po parati.
Salamat, sir.
Thank you.
thank you too.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News. And now joining us is economist Professor Emmanuel Leyco, who is also the president of the Pamantasan Lungsod ng Maynila. Professor Leyco, maraming salamat for joining us tonight and welcome back to the Chiefs.
And
Sir,
dapat tanungin mo siya tungkol sa UP. He said a mouthful to us.
Mamaya na lang, off-cam na lang. Bulong na lang mamaya, bulong na lang.
No, really. Folly daw yan.
That was my worry. Baka si Professor Leyco was already listening in when we were talking about that.
He was.
Well, actually, I was. And I was so tempted to join in.
sabihin nyo na, nakasegue na tayo.
Sige, sir.
Oo nga. You know, talking about UP School of Economics, most, if not all, our economic policymakers or policy think tanks came from the UP School of Economics. And also, this is not against UP. I adore UP. I admire UP. No? Kaya lang, I don't think it's about UP. It's about the school of thought. No? Sa economics,
Yes, sir. That's
hindi
the one.
naman dapat laging textbook economics ang dapat natin dalhin. In fact, I was just saying earlier during the break na the first Marcos president had very good technocrats. No? Lahat mga taga-UP. In fact, I think marami din mga taga East-West, no? School of Economics and magagaling. Pero hindi naman ito about how galing, how competent, how much of an expertise our economic policymakers are bringing into the table. I think it's the new school of economic thought.
Which is,
Paano pag 70 years old na mga
Oh no, wala namang pinag-iba yun. Maaring 70 years old ka, maaring 20 years old ka. But if you share the same old school of economics or economic school of thought, walang pinag-iba yun. You may be the most competent, ikaw ang scholar ng bayan sa economics, pero kung pare-pareho ang pinag-iisipan natin, pareho din ang magiging resulta. And that is what worries me, no? Na I've been reading up a lot on alam mo, yung mga post-mortem.
Yes, sir.
Oh, bakit maraming bumoto kay BBM? No? At kakaunti ang bumoto kay Lenny. Common ang naririnig ko dito, no? Na actually yung speech ni Sheila Coronel, no?
sa Harvard, ay sa Columbia.
Well, she's the dean ng School of
Columbia.
Journalism in Columbia, but she was speaking to a group of graduates to graduating school. No? And sabi niya, ang failure, no, ng fantasized democracy is what is giving way to pluralists like Donald Trump. And in her case, she also described na sa Pilipinas, malaki ang frustration ng mga Pilipino sa experience nila after EDSA. Sabi nila, ibagsak si Marcos dahil siya ang nagdulot ng kahirapan. He was the cause ng the Philippines becoming the sick man of Asia. Pero 30 years later, we are sicker. The poor are still poor. And therefore, sabi nila, baliwala naman pala yung 1986 na yan. You know, so, parang ang nangyari doon was, it was a fantasized democracy and it failed.
Yes, sir.
It failed to deliver. So ngayon, kung ang treatment natin doon sa mga problema natin will be the same treatment that we used during the time of Marcos, Cory, Ramos, GMA, even Noynoy, no? And now even Duterte, the outgoing Duterte administration. It's the same school of thought ng economics. Ano yan? Buksan ang economy sa competition and let the winners prevail. E paano naman yon? For example, sa trade, mabuti si Secretary Fred Pascual ang papasok, no? As Department of Trade. You should also bring in. Bakit ang lakas ng ADB dito sa ating economic policy making? Si Secretary Pernia was also ADB, di ba? ADB or World Bank. Si Secretary Chua, World Bank senior economist. So, kitang-kita mo, it is the same school of economics na nag-prevail and is currently being brought in.
Yes, sir.
So,
Sir,
ano
which is
yung
which?
School of Economics?
What's that?
Sabi ninyo. Siguro you can specify.
As opposed to the traditional measures ng economics natin, no? Pagka sinabi natin, are we growing or not? Titingnan natin ang ating GDP. And GDP is the worst type of economic indicator. You do not know who gets the GDP, who gets the share of that GDP growth rate. No?
Kahit yung Gini coefficient, okay naman tayo eh. Di ba? Okay naman yung numbers natin eh, actually.
Yeah, we're okay. Pero are we really okay? That's why I think I would venture to focus on development economics. Ang ibig sabihin, hindi lang ito yung traditional na GDP growth itong pinag-uusapan, unemployment rate, poverty rate, and pagka pinag-usapan natin halimbawa ang poverty, is poverty declining because of our economic policies or mostly because ang lakas ng dating ng remittances, ng OFW remittances. Halos lahat ng pamilya dito sa Pilipinas ay may kamag-anak na OFW. Siya ang savior, siya ang nagpapadala ng pondo para panggastos niya. Unfortunately, ang economy natin is a consumer-oriented economy. Kaya whatever comes in is easily consumed and they all go out. No? As easy, as fast as they came in, they go out. So, parang it's a given na we rely on OFW remittances, which is good. They come in. Pero dapat pang samantala lang yan, no? If you remember, the OFW phenomenon happened nung panahon in the 80s or 70s,
70s, sir,
no?
70s.
Nawalan tayo ng dolyar. Naubusan tayo ng dolyar. Kailangan sa Middle East ng mga workers. So, parang nag-combine, no? Kailangan nila ng workers, kailangan natin ng dolyar. O edi padala natin ng mga workers natin. But that was supposed to be a temporary stopgap.
Yes, sir.
Palliative, yes.
Yes, sir.
Pero
Sir,
ang nangyari, naging part of our economic strategy and now meron na tayong Department of Migrant Workers kasi parang totohanan na ito, tuloy-tuloy na ito. Hindi na mawawala. I recall na at some point in my life, I also migrated for education. I went to school in the US and Filipino friends I met, ang sabi nila, the only indicator for them na umuunlad na ang Pilipinas is when they are able to find employment in the Philippines and lalabas lang sila ng bansa pagka gusto lang nilang mamasyal. Pero sa atin, parang ang naging parte na ng ating ekonomiya na kailangan lumabas ang mga Pilipino.
sir, so what is
Dahil
the
kung wala
proper?
yan,
Sir,
bagsak tayo.
yes, sir. So what is the appropriate economic indicator then? The employment or unemployment rate? I mean,
Well,
in general terms, how should we look at the economy then?
Oo. More than the GDP, more than the unemployment and poverty rates, tingnan natin yung development indicators, yung access to education, no? Ilan ba ang nakakatapos? Ilan ba ang nakakapasok? Ilan ang nakakatapos at nakakaabot ng koleyo at nakakatapos? And after that, nakakapasok naman sila, tinitingnan naman natin yung mga economic indicators. nakakapasok sila sa mga trabaho na pinag-aralan nila, pinaghandaan nila, at hindi lang sila nagiging wage earners forever. Pwede rin silang maging manager, pwede rin silang maging business owners. So for example, sa amin sa PLM, no? PLM is a very good university. Ang mga estudyante namin are very driven, no? Strongly driven. Kasi we look at education as a passport, no? Towards social mobility, economic mobility. They do very well. Kaya lang, paglabas namin sa pamantasan, ang trato sa amin, kami yung mga workers, kami yung siguro mataas na maging supervisor, at pangilan-ngilan, merong mga ilang mga winners sa amin, nagiging AVP, Vice President, pero mga exceptional. No? So, dapat tingnan natin yung mga economic mobility indicators. Huwag tayo matigil doon sa GDP, yung traditional. Kasi
Yes,
kung
sir.
GDP pag-uusapan natin, it will not show you kanino napunta yung ating GDP.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Di ba
a question I
meron
was...
tayo ng mga yung United Nations, sustainable.
HDI. Yes.
Development
I
Goals.
would-
So, meron tayo yan. About 17 of them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Hindi ba
yes.
yun measure? And I know that we've been constantly measuring our
Yes.
our progress in terms of the sustainable goals. So what needs to change? It's been there, but
The change, I think, should be towards our policies. Rather than focus on purely GDP growth rate, tingnan natin yung HDIs as our goals. Goals nga ang sabi nila dun eh. Hindi naman indicators lang eh, kundi goals natin. No, yung economic empowerment indicators ng ating ng mga HDIs ng United Nations Development Program. Pero sa atin kasi ngayon, pagka pumasok ka sa gobyerno, pagka tinawag kang economic policy makers, ano ang magiging competitive sa ating economy? So what would be competitive? Kung mura ang labor mo, competitive ka na. Ngayon, when it comes to a globalized economy, parang nakontento na tayo na link tayo sa global economy, maski na nasa pinakamababa tayo sa pecking order ng globalized economy. Look at India. Binibitawan na nila ang BPO kasi ito yung mga call center. Ang India is now focusing on KPOs. May higher value added. You know, mahal ang KPO, and in fact, while stock trading still happens in Wall Street, ang mga back office operations niya nangyayari na sa labas. Hindi yun nangyayari sa Wall Street, kundi nangyayari na yan sa India, and even in the Philippines to some extent. Yung research, no, ng mga stocks, dito na nanggagaling yan. So sa akin, I think we should be more focused on, if we want to make ourselves competitive, tingnan natin yung mga industries na may mga promise tayo tulad sa mga digital platforms. Manufacturing, we have to have it, no? Hindi naman pwedeng lahat ng pera na pinapadala sa atin dito, ipambibili natin ng lahat ng mga ni-import natin sa ibang bansa. So, ganun lang yun, no? Nagsisirculate ang pera. Dumadaan kaunti, sandali sa atin, pero labas agad. So, if you look at our macroeconomic configuration, no, ang trade natin is more of a drag. And this is a challenge to Secretary Fred Pascual. How will you now make trade positive and favorable for the Philippines such that tayo ang magiging net exporter rather than net importer? We import high value products, we export most of the time parang yung labor component, no? So I am optimistic, no, with the pronouncements of BBM and the sister. No? Kasi they're saying the right words. They're saying everything correctly now. I'm sorry about that.
Well, sir, you talked about changing philosophies and possibly changing schools of thought. Pero let me ask you the same question I asked kanina, Secretary Pernia. Business and several economists have found comfort in continuity being brought in by the same old faces from past administrations. Pero nga, at the same time, like you pointed out kanina, there's a wave of disgruntled people who feel like their lives have not changed in the last 36 years. So whatever these old faces have been doing the last 36 years, it does not seem to have trickled down. So, yun nga eh, how do you, so is that comforting, in other words?
No, it's not.
To have the same old
actually.
people there.
No, it's not comforting for me. If I may disagree with that, many in the business sector are comforted by the fact that they know the people who will be at the helm of our economic policies. And of course, kasi kung big business ang maririnig natin, oh yes, they're very comfortable with this. Kaya lang, hindi naman big business lang ang business sector. Mas marami ang nano at saka medium and small enterprises. No? At ito ang hihingi ng kami naman ang bigyan nyo ng protection. Kami naman ang bigyan nyo ng subsidy. Kami naman ang bigyan nyo ng support. Kami ang bigyan nyo ng credit break. Kami ang bigyan nyo ng tax break. Kami naman ang bigyan nyo ng government support na makakaangat sa amin. The big guys...
Hindi ba yan nga ang ginagawa ngayon ng gobyerno ni President Duterte pa lang eh. I mean, different administrations have been talking about inclusion eh. Inclusive growth. Saka lalo ng pandemya, dahil 98% nga daw natin eh, micro enterprises. Hindi ba puro yan nga ang ginagawa nila ngayon? Na access to funding, ayuda, lahat na nga ginagawa, di ba? Ano pa yung kulang doon under yung sinasabi niyong new economic policies?
Malaki ang pagkukulang natin. For example, kung ang hinahanap natin ay support ng mga negosyo, yung ayuda, no, dapat mapunta yan doon sa mga small, medium and nano enterprises and sustain. Hindi ito pwede yung bigyan mo ng tax break across the board, everybody benefits, pero yung mga maliit lang ang magaganansya nila. Yung mga malalaki, yun ang kanilang magiging ganansya. In other words, kailangan na magbuwis tayo, no? Kasi malaki ang ating deficit, no? At naniniwala ako talaga nung sinabi ni Secretary Dominguez na kailangan ng mga bagong taxes kasi kailangan tayo magbayad ng utang. Pero dito papasok yung development philosophy natin. Pagka tayo gumawa ng mga bagong buwis, paano ba natin i-structure ito? I believe na ito ay dapat maging wealth-based at saka maging income-based na matataas. Yung matataas ang income, sila dapat ang matataas ang kanilang babayaran. Yung mga maliliit, sila siguro yung malibre, no? At yung mga wealth natin ang dapat na maging basis ng ating bubuwisan. Hindi pwede yung sabihin natin, mahirap i-administer yan. Tax administration is the biggest challenge all over the world, no? But that doesn't mean na hindi natin ito gagawin. Kailangan gawin natin ito and tingnan natin how we can improve on our tax administration. Pero definitely, when we talk about development philosophy, no, hindi lahat pare-pareho. Remember, I think when we are talking about inflation, I always say, ang inflation ng mahirap ay iba sa inflation ng mayaman. Dahil ang inflation ng mahirap, for example, ang food inflation is 8%. Ang overall inflation is 4%. Ang relevant na inflation number sa kanya is 8%, hindi yung 4%. And particularly brutal para sa mga mahihirap kasi more than 60% ng sweldo nila ay napupunta sa pagkain. So 60-70% ng income nila is subjected to an 8% inflationary rate. So sila yon. Ngayon, ano ang policy dapat natin na gawin? Dapat inflation focus natin. Tingnan natin, may target dapat tayo kung sino ang dapat nating tulungan. Hindi madali, mahirap, pero kailangan gawin. Otherwise, kung ano ang nangyari sa atin in the last 36 years, mauulit lang. You know, I want this government, I'm praying that this government, the new government, succeeds in truly alleviating poverty, in truly giving justice to people. Pero if we use the same philosophy that brought us to where we are right now, I'm afraid that we will go back to 30, 40 years ago. Nakakalungkot yun. We have an opportunity now. The President has a lot of political capital. Maganda yung sinasabi niya. Corruption will erode governance. Sabi nung sister, let us bring in rivals. That is good. No? You cannot have a single school of thought running the country. In the US, for example, pagka Democrats, maraming dala ang Democrats galing sa Kennedy School of Government. Pagka Republicans ang nanggaling, nanalo, marami silang dala ng mga policy makers or policy think tanks galing sa Wharton School of Business. Magkakaiba eh. Ngayon sa Pilipinas, manalo ang si ganito, manalo ang ganyan, lahat galing sa School of Economics ng UP. Kaya malaki ang paninindigan, malaki ang pananagutan ng School of Economics ng UP kung ano ang mangyayari sa ating kabuhayan. And to be fair, magagaling talaga ang mga economists natin nang galing sa UP. Sila ang tinitingala ng other schools. Pagka nagre-recruit ang mga ibang eskwelahan, they look up to UP, dito natin kuhanin ang kanilang mga professor, dalhin natin dito. I used to teach at AIM for a long time. And we were always planning to recruit UP professors to us. They're very good. Kaya lang, pagdating sa ating kabuhayan, pagdating sa policies ng buong bansa, I think it will require more than the UP School of Economics. Dalhin natin dito ang bagong School of Economics galing sa mga mamamayan.
Okay.
Yan, on that humbling thought,
Okay.
we shall end.
Yes, sir. Maraming salamat, sir. That was a pretty good discussion. We'd like to thank PLM President Dr. Emmanuel Leco for joining us tonight, sir. Always a
Professor
pleasure
lang
to
po,
have you.
hindi po ako doktor. Professor
Okay.
po.
Professor Emmanuel Leco. Sir, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. Ingat po.
Maraming salamat po and thank you for
Salamat,
having
sir.
me back. Thank you, thank you.
That'll be all for this edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe. Philippines, I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.